Shakeups to the offensive line. Who is going to wear the green dot? And let's face it, you are here for Jason Campbell. So am I. Let's get going on your Daily Commanders update for 26 October. Let's go. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to your Daily Commanders update for 26 October. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. We are Ref the District on the Believe Network, and we're going to get through this as quickly as we can because we're just as excited as you are for this. Some big changes, Stoner, on the offensive line are expected as they are. Sadiq Charles is not on the practice field, according to John Keim, and the decision at left guard, it's looking like it's going to be Stromberg or Chris Paul. It's not the only offensive line change up expected. Pre-practice work, John Keim shares a video of Sam Howell and Tyler Larson. How big is it that we're seeing these shakeups here for the offensive line?
It's big. Can we talk to Jason Campbell now? No? Okay. But real quick, it looks like some shakeups are coming for this game against Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens. Center. If Nick Gates does kind of get booted out of the center position, is he going to go to left guard? Is that the reason that they're doing this? Remember, he played left guard for the Giants as well. So who knows exactly what they're going to do? My prediction is going to be Leno, Chris Paul, Nick Gates, Cosme, and Wiley, with Stromberg being the swing guard and then Larson the backup. That's just my prediction. I have no idea.
Nick Gates in the video, by the way, was snapping to Jacoby Brissett. Curtis Samuel was out there. He did not practice yesterday because of his knee. He's out there. Big deal for that because a lot of this offense has been running through Curtis Samuel so far. If he goes out, who ends up kind of filling that role in the offense?
Oh, Jason Campbell, maybe. I don't know. If he goes out, who would be the guy? It probably would be a De'Ami Brown or probably a Byron Pringle would be his replacement. So we'll see again, but I don't think you're going to have to worry about Curtis Samuel. To me, that's kind of a vet day as well. When these older guys who've got bigger contracts say, I want to take a day off, what are you going to do? They're going to take the day off.
Not continuing on the Samuel injury, but on the other side of the ball, Cody Barton is still likely to be out. And so Jack Del Rio talked about who's going to wear the green dot. It's not looking like it's going to be Miracle Whip. David Mayo will not wear it. Last year, we saw Cam Curl. We like Cam Curl, and I think that's an excellent role for him. It is going to be very impactful on the defense. I'm not even going to ask you what you want to talk about because let's face it, we're all here for one thing, and that is Jason Campbell, former Washington Redskins QB. I'm sure we've got lots to talk about. Hey, Jason, thanks for joining us here on Ref the District. It is an honor to have you here on our channel, as you were one of my favorites as I was a young man. I really thought the world of you. I really did. I thought like Joe Gibbs landed the right QB. We traded up for you, and I thought that this was going to work out. And then you had 3 offensive coordinators. Like you're bamboozled a little bit by the franchise. But I mean, I'm looking over some of the teams, and those are pretty fantastic. What's your best memory as a Redskin?
Man, I tell you what, playing in Washington is a treat, because it's the nation's capital. You're probably the second most famous person in the city outside the president. The fan base, like, they just be holding on for something. And then you got a chance to play in the NFC East, which is at that time was one of the biggest rivals. Every time you play Philly, every time you play the Giants or the Cowboys, it meant a lot. It meant a lot. And I feel like, being part of that was really good. The frustrating part for me was having to go through so much change. I feel like every time you took 1 or 2 steps forward, you had to take 3 back and start all the way back over again. And I just feel like that kind of, even though I still put up some good numbers, it's just I always just imagine what it could have been, though. Had I stayed in the same system where you already passed the A and the B, now you get to C in the offense and D in the offense, and then you walk into the line of scrimmage, I know this play is not going to work against this defense because I've seen it for 3 years now. Which play to try to get us into. Instead of trying to play while you're trying to learn a system, it's a difference between playing and knowing the system than playing and learning the system. And You know, you see a lot of veteran quarterbacks. That's why they play 10 years in the system. They do great, but then they have change, and everybody be like, "What's wrong with this quarterback? Why he can't play no more?" Because he's had stability his entire career, and then all of a sudden now he has change, and he can't adapt the change that well because now he's playing and learning where he's not used to that. He's used to just playing.
Yeah, I kind of wanted you to expand a little bit on the whole, more on that change. You were kind of known for, in college, you had 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years. You get to the NFL, so then you got to learn a new system, and you're only in that system for like 3 seasons, I believe. And then Zorn comes in, and he's got a whole new system, and that's 2 years. Then you go to another one for another system. And Sam Howell's kind of going through that as well. He had a system, all those years in Carolina, but then he got a new system last year with Scott Turner. Then this year is Eric Bieniemy. What do you think kind of Sam's going through in terms of learning so many different systems year after year after year?
Yeah, because in those systems, different protection calls too, So, everyone blocks. Offensive line coaches like to block things differently. Each team I go on, you get a double mug blitz with a guy on the edge. Some teams, they like to gap it, and put the backs on the outside. Some teams like to slide and just have the back read 1 to 2. Pick out the best 5 into the offensive line. You got these best 5, then the back got 1 to 2. But if they all come, now you got to know it's a quarterback ball got to come out. So it just all those type of things you have to know when it comes to protection calls, but then also when it comes to rhythm and throwing, because it's not just the quarterback that's learning a new system, it's the receivers, it's the running backs, and all that stuff goes hand in hand. Because if you just think about it, man, everybody that what Sam is going through is when you see him taking sacks, to me, that tells me a couple of things. One, he's unsure if the guy's going to be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, because the simple fact that there's still trust that's got to be built in this offense, right? So, and then number 2 is Sam is not as tall as I am. So sometimes it makes me wonder, can he even see what he needs to see if he's inside the pocket sometimes? So he hadn't to hold on to the ball because he's not having a clear vision. He just don't want to throw the ball blindly. And I think how Washington can kind of help some of those things is, dial up some plays where the ball got to come out quick, where there's some slants or some quick screens or, things where the ball comes out, get the tight end on a stick route, where defenses be like, okay, we can't blitz him all the time because if he's going to beat us with the ball, then it slows down their blitzes. I think the other thing is change his depth points. And what I mean by that is instead of him just always being in the pocket throwing the ball, how about you get him outside the pocket on some bootlegs, some play action? You see the Packers used to do it with Aaron Rodgers back in the day where they're play action and he'll kind of half roll and then set up and throw some different concepts. They can do some of those same things, which is what Kyle Shanahan does a lot of his offense with Brock Purdy. It's changed his movement point. So defenses can't just line up and say, okay, he's going to be 8.5 yards, 9 yards deep. So this is where we're going to pin our ears back. No, move the pocket sometimes, change the sense of direction for the guy. But I do think some of those sacks are on him, but then a lot of them are on the offensive line just getting beat too, though, not winning their one-on-one matchups up front. And if you're a quarterback, you're not sure you're going to ever get to that third progression, because I had to go through this. Like, you get hit a lot and you're not sure if you're going to get to that third progression. Sometimes you'll skip number 1 pre-snap just based on what you're seeing, because you don't know if you'll have time to get back to 2 and 3. And then somebody come out like, man, 1 was there. Yeah, you're in your head like, yeah, but the look then showed me 1 was there at this pre-snap. Like, because I know I got a certain amount of time to get this ball out.
So you were nicknamed Mr. Smooth in college, kind of goes to the NFL as well. That's kind of a demeanor that Sam Howell's shown, is not allowing anything to phase him. And that's where your nickname came, was your kind of cool demeanor and just kind of, not letting interceptions get to you, not letting those sacks get to you. How does that help you as a QB get through a game?
Oh, it got to help you a lot when you're an NFL quarterback. It's so much like media out there, so many things that can kind of distract you if you honed in on it. I think as far as like sometimes you got to have tunnel vision. And what I mean by that is, block out all the noise to your left and right and just focus on the things that's in front of you. Focus on the things that's ahead of you and keep striving forward for those things, because if you get caught in trying to please everybody, that's when you're really not going to be the person or even understand what you're trying to do as a quarterback, because you're trying to do something either please a fan or you're trying to do something to please this network, or, even sometimes the coaches, I do feel like sometimes they made me play robotic, and me coming out of Auburn, I was more of I could run, I could throw, I can do certain things. But then sometimes I feel like once we went to a West Coast offense, when I was in Coach Gibbs and Saunders offense, it was more down the field passing. It was more play action. And then when Coach Zorn got the job, it was more of a West Coast system. We're going to try to change your footwork. We're going to try to change your arm angles. Ball got to come out quick and all that type of stuff, where I wish I could have just been myself, because the ball didn't have to come out quick for me, because my arm strength was strong enough to get the ball there at any time. Where some guys, like a Brock Purdy, you see him, the ball has to come out quick for him because he can't make it up from arm strength. So he has to deliver the ball before guys are in their breaks and out of their breaks. That's harder for big arm quarterbacks that has bigger arms and longer arms. So I just feel like consistency and continuity and stability, man, it always plays a huge part in the quarterback position. Like, if you don't have stability and consistency, where you're trying to hear the same thing over and over a little bit, or you're trying to getting used to this certain coach and the style, like, it does matter. 'Cause even Coach Gibbs' first year, when I sat most of that year, I was learning. But then Al Saunders come in 06 and 07, and it was like we kept the run game, but our passing game changed. And then by the time you got a chance to adapt to that passing game, Coach Gibbs retired. So then everything just changed. So then you just started all the way over with a whole new system. And then to a point where you not just starting a system for yourself. And, I love Coach Zorn, great guy, great person. But at the same time, he was hired to be a quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator, which was going to be his first time ever being an offensive coordinator. And so he doesn't know about, at that point in time, he hasn't game plan or call plays. This is his first time. And then all of a sudden, because he was hired before the head coach was hired, it was backwards. You're supposed to hire the head coach first and then hire your staff. But because he was hired first, no coach wanted to, to take that at the time, because they were like, I want to bring in my own guys, So then Jim Zorn went from being an offensive coordinator to all of a sudden now he's a head coach within a matter of 2 weeks. And now you're talking about a first-year head coach, first-year offense coordinator. That's hard. That's hard for anybody, and everyone knows the rest of the history, how, it was taken from him mid-season the next year. We end up, getting bingo player, as we called him, Coach Sherman Lewis.
You guys, so you heard that. Everybody out here calling him the bingo caller.
Yeah. They say, he was retired for a couple of years at home playing bingo. And I remember he got the job, where he came in and he pulled me in the office, and he was just like, man, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, out of all my years of coaching football, I've never seen someone have to be put in this position that you're being put in your NFL career. He said, this is absolutely bananas. He was just like, it made zero sense. He said, I thought I was coming in to be an analyst, to help coach. He said, the owner had called him in and said he want him to call the plays this Sunday. He just got there. So then he had to call the plays in the game that Sunday. So he was asking me, what do I like? And he's trying to learn things. And then, Coach Zorn, he's competitive, right? So you don't want nobody coming in and taking your job and everything. So then I'm not really giving you all the feedback, because I don't know if I want you to do well, because this is supposed to be my thing. So there was some little bit of tension there in the beginning, and they ended up working it out over a couple of weeks. But man, it was really, really hard and really, really bad. I never really talk about it a whole lot, but I do talk to my wife about it now. Sometimes I'd be like, you know what? I watch NFL sports and I watch games, and you realize in life, you only get one real opportunity to go through that profession and play at that level, or the highest of the levels you can play at a quarterback. And you have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fascinating stuff, Jason. And you are bringing up a little PTSD for us fans with that era and what the previous owner, we're not allowed to say his name here.
Got to put a dollar in the jar.
But yeah, and it's just amazing that the stuff that you kind of hear behind the scenes was actually, it was happening on the field, and how it affected not only obviously our fandom, but it affected your players and how difficult it made your career as a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, most definitely. Because when I left there and went to the Raiders, man, like the Raiders were, kind of flux of situation as well, but they had a little bit more consistency there.
Hmm.
Al Davis was the owner when I got there. And like I said, the first year, I think we go 8-8. I started 12 games. I go 8-4 that first year. Then the next year we start off, we were hot, 5-2. We're starting off, and then I break my collarbone in 14 different places, but Al Saunders had came over to the Raiders my second year. So when he got there as offense coordinator, I was ripping off stuff like this to the other players where I'm telling them, hey, this is what he's looking for at this position. So offensively, we took off that 2011 year. And, like I said, ended up breaking my collarbone, had to miss the rest of the year, ended up being my contract year and all of that. Ended up trading for Palmer because I got desperate at the time. And that, I just went through a lot in my career. But it was just, but I tell guys all the time, man, like, regardless of what goes on, some stuff you just can't control. But at the end of the day, man, it's still an honor to go out there and play at that level. Like, don't get so caught up in the business side of it, because once I got through year 10, I had a chance to play 2-3 more years. I'll be honest with you guys. I was tired.
You're done.
I was done. Like I told my family, I said, I have nothing else in me to want to learn another playbook. I said, I have nothing else in me to want to feel like I got to keep proving myself over, because when I do prove myself, it seems like they still just take the rug out from under me. I said, I'm just tired. I said, 10 years has been good. I'm thankful for that. It's time to move on, find something else.
Well, you certainly seem to be finding your niche there with Auburn and doing some good work down there. The kind of analytics side that you're on right now, right? Like, you're on the other side here and you get to watch these games and you have that experience as a player. Do you find yourself, especially if you're watching Sam Howell out there, screaming at the TV to be like, you got to watch the blind side guy, or is there anything that, like, when you're watching games that you feel might be different than a couple of yahoos like ourselves who never played at the NFL level?
I find myself kind of trying to put myself in the shoes of what some of these guys are going through. Like at Auburn right now, we're playing 2 quarterbacks, rotate them in and out like every series. And I'm telling people, like, that can't work, because if a quarterback doesn't know if he's going to be in the next play or the next series, it messes with his mindset. It messes with his rhythm, his flow, and even the other guys around him, it messes with their flow and rhythm, because you can't really get in chemistry or get into the flow of the game. So when I think about when you're watching what Washington is going through, when you see, Jonathan Allen go off the way he went off, you got to think, okay, defensively, he's saying, okay, we've had some really good times defensively, but we're still dealing with the same struggling stuff that's going on, which he's really saying the offensive has been struggling, since I've been here. And at the end of the day, like, there's been so much changeover. It's hard to build continuity, and you keep hearing, this is going to change or that is going to change. And then all of a sudden, it feel like the same thing just keeps happening over and over. Then all of a sudden the explosion happens, and, he ended up exploding and letting all his emotions out, because that's a guy that cares. And one, he's a winner. He played at the University of Alabama under Saban, so he's used to winning. And now he's in Washington. And when you're losing at that level, it's hard. It's hard to accept losing. You never want to accept losing. And the fact that, you keep looking up and you keep feel like you're hitting your head against the wall and everything, even with there's new change, which we all know change takes time. They got to get Washington time under the new ownership to get things. This is their first time. So, it's just frustrating for those guys, but it's frustrating as well when you go through so many changes. There's no continuity.
I mean, Jonathan Allen lost more games this past month with Washington than he lost his entire career at Alabama. And he's been here for 7 years, as he said. So it's
without a winning season. Yeah, it's got to be frustrating.
But let me ask you about the trade deadline's coming up next week. And there's a lot of talk here in Washington about possibly trading the backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, back to Cleveland, because he obviously he knows that area and that team very well. But you had one year where you sat behind Mark Brunell, right? Your rookie year, and you learned from Mark Brunell. How important is it to have a mentor like that while you're learning, whether it's on the job or in your case, you sat and watched and learned? Would it be a detriment to Sam Howell to lose Jacoby Brissett as that guy in the locker room with him, in that quarterback room?
Well, the one thing about Jacoby is his attitude and mindset is, I'm a team player, so he's probably going to do everything he can to keep how mindset and where it should be, especially in a long season. NFL is a long season. And I do think if they was to lose him, even though he's learning a new system here in Washington as well, but it's his experience going through all those different changes that he's been through that he can help someone like Howell, because he's backed up Brady before, so he's backed up some experienced guys, and he's played in what I call a stable franchise before, and he can probably have some stability there and helping Howell, because Mark, played at Jacksonville, which they had a really good run with Fred Taylor and, those guys when they was down in Jacksonville. And then he came to Washington. He was kind of on the back end of his career, but it was just certain things that he could talk to me about that would help me mentally, even emotionally. So you do need those type of guys on the team. But, for a Kobe Brissett team, it's all about, for Washington, like, what are we going to get? Are y'all going to give us another lineman? Because, if you're Howell, do you want another lineman, or you worry about having Kobe Brissett behind you mentoring you? I'm like, hey, you know what? Give me another lineman. Give me another lineman right now. So because that can help me immediately, right now. So right now, Washington has to find out what are immediate needs right now before the trade deadline is over. And losing Jacoby will be a blow from a locker room standpoint. But what you need right now in that football field on offense is protection.
Sure. Now, what is that locker room like right now? Like, we're coming up on the trade deadline. Jacoby Brissett's name's being mentioned. Chase Young, Montez Sweat. Like, what's it like right there in that locker room when you're hearing somebody who you've been sitting next to for the entire year might be gone, by the end of the weekend?
I think some guys, you kind of get inept to it, like that's kind of the NFL way. Or you in training camp, you practicing, and next day you come in the locker room like, oh man, buddy's locker cleaned out. It's just like you get used to seeing new faces. Very rarely you go through a whole season where your team looks like the way that it started. And going to when you're Sweat and you're Chase Young and guys like that, now it can hurt you a little bit more because you are a starter. And your payday's coming up. At the end of this year, I think they have to sign both of those guys or decide they're gonna let one go. So for you, it's like, okay, if you're gonna trade me, then I would appreciate if someone from up top have a conversation with me to prepare me and say, hey, we're shopping you a little bit, to these organizations here. If we can get a deal done, we know it's your contract year. We can't pay you after this year because it just doesn't line up for us financially. But which one of these teams you would like to go to? That would be the honorable way to do it. But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Like, guys can be sitting in their house, and all of a sudden they get a phone call from their agent saying, hey, you just been traded.
Yeah, find out about it on social media.
Right. You just got to pack up. You got to pack up and sit your stuff off, and you guys got to move on. So guys are used to change. That's why I think a lot of athletes, when they're out in the real world, they're used to having to adapt and adjust. It's no different.
Hey, I got to ask you about when you were drafted in 2005 and Washington obviously traded up for you, and the 3 picks that they gave up. Do you know who those 3 picks turned out to be?
I don't.
Specifically, so it was a 3rd rounder in 2005. All right. And this guy's name was Carl Pema. He was a cornerback. That's who Denver got for that one particular pick. In 2006, the 1st rounder, San Francisco got Manny Lawson, linebacker.
Yeah, I heard of Lawson. I remember
that's who they got for. They ended up trading with Denver. Because Denver's the one that did the whole trade. And then in 2006, 4th round pick, Denver picked Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver. Marshall, who Yeah. He ended up with like 83 touchdowns in his career.
yeah.
Really, really good
Yeah.
player. But I didn't know
Probably
if
be a Hall of Famer.
yeah, he
Yeah.
might be a Hall of Famer, absolutely. But do you remember kind of that draft day and what was going through your mind as kind of the picks are going and you're kind of waiting for your name to be called, and then finally Washington calls with the 25th pick?
Yeah, I remember leading up to that, I talked to Coach Gibbs and talked to, at that time was Bill Musgrave, the quarterback coach.
Hmm.
And I remember those guys coming down to Auburn. I think he brought the offensive line, and Coach Bugle, I think, came. So he brought
The
all
whole
those
offensive
guys.
line or just
Yeah,
the coach?
now the coaches. So he brought
Oh,
the
okay.
offensive coaches.
Gotcha.
And I remember they came down and met with me and just kind of took me in the room. And I was just like, are we going to go work out on the field or something? And they was just like, no, we've seen enough we want to see on the film. Like, you fit our style. Doug Williams was a quarterback that looked similar to you, and both of y'all had big arms. And based off the type of offense that I want to run, that I ran with those guys, it's all about play action pass and try to push the ball down the field. So they would get me on the board, just talk football. And then after we finished that, they was like, hey, we're going to move up in the first round and take you. If you don't get taken before us, we're going to make that move. Because there was a question I might go before them. And I remember they ended up making a move, and Coach Gibbs called me and said, hey, we just made that move to draft you. Now, if you're not there at that time, we'll trade back out of it. But we're making that move to draft you. You're like, we really think you fit our system. And I really did think I fit their system. I think when he got there and when I learned that first year, and then once Al Saunders got there, and man, we started to understand the game, and I started to learn how to push the ball and how to, because people don't realize I missed a lot of that preseason in 07 because I got my knee hurt. And then and everything, I got hurt again in 07 when I ended up dislocating my kneecap. So, I ended up missing the last 3 games of that season, and we ended up making the playoffs. But that was a rough year too as well, because we lost Sean Taylor. And I think ultimately that was a lot to have to go through that. And I think Coach, at the end of the year, you lose somebody like that. And I think his son at the time had been going through some things as well. I think he decided to step away, just get out of football again completely. And, a part of me, was like, oh, man, because this is the legendary coach that drafted you, and you wanted to see like how far could you get it. And he was all about stability. If anybody talked in their locker room or anybody talked in a team room, Coach Gibbs had everybody's ears. He had everybody's respect. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't going to be no chaos going on. It wasn't going to be no disrespect going on. It wasn't going to be all over the place. He was still learning how to get back into the new way of football because he had been out for so long. So he was just learning. I think we was turning the curve because in 05, we ripped off like 5 in a row, I believe, to go to the playoffs. And then 06, it was just a sputtery year. But then 07, we get back up a little bit. And we, like I say, go through the heartbreak and we get fired in a little bit, make the playoffs again. So out of those 3 years, 2 of those years was in playoffs. So you just feel like with that continuity that we was headed in the right direction. And then when he stepped away, it seemed like the leadership went from him making decisions and keeping everything in the whole back to the owner, which can now I'm a plug and play who I want to as far as like coaches and stuff. And it just didn't work.
Well, for the Washington Commanders to make the playoffs, they're going to have to go on one of those similar spurts there, Jason. What does Sam Howell have to do, especially Sunday against division rivals Eagles, to get a victory on Sunday and then continue it throughout the season?
Well, I know he can't participate in a tush push. So every time it's 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2 or less, just expect the tush push. I don't know if y'all saw this, but one of the Cleveland Browns, which actually played with me, Joe Thomas, came out and he's been studying the tush push, and he came up with how to stop it. And
really?
Yeah, he was saying, get your linebackers behind the D-line, right behind their tush push. And when they start, have those guys pushing the D-line's butts, but then have the guys on the edge go tackle the receiver and the running back that's supposed to push the quarterback. because now if you go tackle the running back and the receiver that gives Jalen the push, they can't push him anymore. And now you got your guys pushing your D line end up in there. So now you can stop the tush push. So I thought it was very interesting that he said that I'd be willing to see somebody try it. I saw Warner the other night against Minnesota jump over top and get Cousins. That's one way, but I think that way makes a little sense because it eliminates the people that's pushing him. But I do think Howell in this game, guys, I think he has to protect the football. I think you have to understand that anytime you play in a game like this, is this game in Washington?
Yes,
it is.
So
yes.
Game's in Washington, so you're at home, so your defense is gonna have the crowd behind them. You just don't want to give, you hope. You just don't want to give Philly anything easy. You know what I'm saying? Like make them have to work for what they do. Like make them have to go to long drives and everything. Because Washington played them early in Philly. I remember that because I remember on the sideline, our rookie, a defensive back. But I would say for him, protect the football. If you get sacked or whatever, man, just get up, go encourage those guys on the sideline. Don't let them down their head or feel bad because they already been taking enough of a beating from a lot of people. So go encourage them to get up and want to get back out there and keep playing. But get those guys going, man. This offense has got to get going early in ball games. Like that's been their problem. Like they start off so slow, and then by the time they catch wind of what's going on or get going, you're 17 points in the hole, you're 14 points in the hole, and you got to climb so hard to get back out of it and everything. If this team can find a way to start fast and get Sam going faster, get the ball in and out of his hands early in this ball game, so that the Philly defense, because Philly doesn't have to blitz them a lot. They'll rotate their front and try to create pressure and play coverage. So, so we just have to see, like, can Washington do what they did in the second half up in Philly earlier in the year? Can they do that this Sunday early in the ball game? Because you're gonna have to let Philly know it's going to be a ball game in the first quarter. You can't come out there sputtering your feet and trying to figure things out in that first quarter. You got to exactly know what to do when that game starts, how we're going to attack Philly, how we're going to try to get points on the board early and try to create some pressure where our defense can then go after Jalen. Jalen is a really, really good quarterback, but his times that he struggled, statistics say he struggles when he's faced with pressure. Pressure only happens if they're behind and the teams can pressure them. Most of the time they're ahead of teams so that they can run the ball and protect and play action pass and do all those things because the other team afraid of giving up the big play because they're behind, so you got to get Philly on the ropes a little bit by getting ahead of them and making them and give our defense a chance to put pressure on them.
Man, Jason, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you about the past and the present and even obviously the future for Washington. But I was wondering, has the new ownership group and maybe the alumni groups or whatever, have they reached out to you in terms of, have you had a chance to get back out and see the new ownership group and talk to them and kind of get ingratiated, is that the word?
When's the next time we're seeing you out at FedEx?
When's the next time we're going to see you out at FedEx as a Redskin player and as something that we can honor you for the time you spent in Washington?
Yeah, the alumni definitely reached out to me. Try to they wanted me to come to alumni weekend, but we was playing out in Texas A&M that weekend. So everyone know I do play-by-play for Auburn, calling the football game. So I have to travel when the team travels. So I wasn't able to make that weekend, but I told him I was hoping, that there can be a weekend I can get up there and try to, be around, meet some of the guys. I would love to meet the new ownership and everything. Like I said, they're concerned probably more about the guys that are playing, but it does mean something to reach out, to guys that's played for, I consider the Redskins, especially a lot of guys that I've known throughout the years. And just try to get this thing back in the right direction. Like right now, there's a lot of question marks and a lot of different things, and we all knew that this is going to be a tryout season, right, for the new ownership. So, everybody's resume has to be updated after this year, anyways. So, so I think that's what's going to happen. Because think about it. Coach Rivera, he didn't handpick Coach Rivera. He was here.
Right.
You know, coaches were here, players were here. So they're going to evaluate everything at the end of this season and figure out, you know, what direction they want to go, who resumes they're going to keep and who resumes they're going to, you know, unfortunately cancel. And that's just the nature of the business. And right now, what Washington players and coaches are doing is right now you're playing for jobs, but you're also playing, you know, to fight to get back in this division. This is almost a must win for Washington on Sunday.
Mhm.
Yeah, that it is. And Washington will have a chance. And hopefully, for Sam Howell's sake, he doesn't have the same thing that happened to you in your career with all the changes and the turmoil and everything. And because, like you said, given that one shot, you would definitely want the best shot possible. Jason, we appreciate you jumping on here on Ref the District. As you mentioned, people can catch you calling the Auburn games. You're also on the Believe Network, spitting out facts about the Auburn football team there as well. So Jason, thanks for watching. I'm Nathan, that's the Stoner, and until next time.
Yeah, it's Big Smooth. That's his nickname, right?
Yeah,
Big
Big
Be a
Spoon, man.
fan.
Big Spoon. We all need victories this weekend, man. Washington need to win. Auburn need to win. We 0-4 the last 4 weeks. You know, we all gonna be great head around here after a while.